And now your feature presentation.
Chris, I wanted to ask you a question about both sound design and location, and how important is that in terms of incorporating that in the script, but also finding locations that make sense to build atmosphere and tension. Because when I was watching the movie, the thing that I really took away from it is that there's breathing room in the
Yeah.
score. When it's there, it's great, but you allow the audience to feel the dread in silence.
Oh, thank you. No, that was definitely a goal. I mean, that we there's like a 7 minute portion of the movie without dialogue. And that was also something we talked about a lot. There's a sequence in Predator where Arnold is like alone and he's hunting the predator for like 20 minutes without saying anything except bleeding bastard. And, and I took inspiration from like, you can make like a movie like that without any dialogue and it's still kind of interesting where, you're with someone kind of exploring. With the sound design, yeah, we sat through a couple weeks on the Fox lot, mixing this movie, and Happy Gilmore 2 was being mixed right next to us, so we would see Adam Sandler like walking around in gym shorts and a Hawaiian T-shirt and stuff. And Jerry Bruckheimer randomly walked into our studio and was like, "What are you guys working on?" I was like, "Holy fucking shit, it's Jerry Bruckheimer." We really took a lot of care to try to subvert the idea of like you're expecting a noise here, but we're gonna not give you that, and we're gonna keep you tense instead of giving you that release that you're expecting from the jump scare, and we have a couple jump scares too that I think are timed out, but we really like this idea of playing with stillness,
Yes, absolutely.
and watching someone actually think and process something and watching an actor get to emote in that way, and you're sort of trying to figure out what's going on in their head. And I don't see that as much anymore in film.
No, you don't. Did you think about that as both, a filmmaker and a critic? Because that's something I've always been fascinated by, when somebody that has a knowledge in film history, whether they be a historian or critic, and they're making that leap into filmmaking. Is that something that runs parallel, or do you separate those two things?
I don't really, I think it's always just been the same kind of straightforward path for me of just like approaching movies from the POV of a filmmaker since I started making movies when I was a little kid, and kind of exploring with the camcorder and stuff, and trying to get into the mind of the filmmaker even when I was, reviewing full time. It's something that I do tend to approach from that POV. And so like when I was working on this movie, I think it all just kind of, if you immerse yourself in film for a really long time, you're going to learn something about it inevitably. You're going to develop taste. You're going to know what you like and what you don't like. And then it's just about surrounding yourself with people who, care about the project and want to work on it hard, and, give the passion to it that you're giving to it.
Yeah, there's something as well about watching moments. You mentioned the stillness, where the mind plays games on you as well throughout the movie, that I find absolutely, immersive in its narrative storytelling. But specifically, were there reference points that you were conscientious of when you were making the movie, and were there anything, that you saw after having made the film? Because even though it's not maybe a direct reference, I did think a lot about John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness as
Oh,
almost being a found footage movie, the idea of like a shared sort of subliminal message that's coming through the film.
sure.
And there was something about that I kind of was gravitating towards here as well.
Love Prince of Darkness. I think that the two biggest inspirations were definitely Lake Mungo and Noroi, those two mock docs. And both of them, for me, had this sense of being very creepy and unsettling, but there was like a rawness to it. And so,
Emotion.
yeah, yeah, there's like this deep sort of human element to both of those movies that feels like it can really get under your skin more so than other horrors.
Was that also something where you were thinking about how you were presenting Mia at the beginning, and how she's telling her side of events about Riley, in the sense of, you have Mia talking about, this is how I see her,
Yeah,
and this is how the media has portrayed her in a way? Is that something that was conscientious in the writing process?
definitely. Yeah, no, I mean, and it's fun because one of the challenges was you're trying to tell a bond, but you're not seeing them together, except in when they're young and like VHS footage. And you need to feel like that sense of yearning for this familial bond that you had without really seeing them together. And that was something. That's why I'm so happy I'm working with Camille Sullivan on this, because she just gave so much real emotion to those earlier scenes when she's talking about her life with Riley.
And did the script change at all when you cast her? Because you were a big fan of her work in Hunter x Hunter
Yeah.
as well. Is that something where it's like you tailor the role when you're working with the actor?
No, she loved the script and we didn't change too much of it, but there were certain lines where after I had worked with her for like a week and we were kind of developing this sense of who Mia was through Camille, that we did look at and be like, I don't think Mia would say that. Now that I've seen you say these things, I don't think Mia would say this. We need to kind of shift it. And it wasn't like a massive shift or something, but sometimes it's just about like how something rolls off the tongue and what feels more comfortable for someone to say. And there are some directors who are very like, you say it the way I wrote it, like don't change anything. But I do think that when you get an actor, in front of the camera and you hear the way they speak and the way they inflect, that inevitably, like, it just makes more sense to make the certain pieces of the dialogue fit better for how they would, just be more comfortable saying it.
And was that something that you discovered in the table read? Because I heard that you didn't really have any time to rehearse.
No, not really. On an indie movie like this, there's no time for that.
And 20 days as well.
Yeah.
Is that something where you also have to be conscientious of in terms of just filmmaking and working with a group of people? Because obviously as well, your work as a film critic, I'm sure you're doing a lot of that by yourself.
Sure.
And now you're working with, other people that are collaborating on this
Yeah.
process from beginning to end.
We had no budget for overtime. So yes, every single day we had to meet as soon as it was like, hey, we're done. If we have 5 more shots on the list, it doesn't matter. We are done. And so it was very, very tight every single day. And there was a lot of effort to condense as much as possible. And you've probably heard a lot of story, I have too, of like filmmakers, like whether it's George Lucas making Star Wars or something, where you are presented with a series of limitations and you have to adapt constantly to those limitations.
And that makes the creative process, I think, even more inspiring because you kind of find things as you go along. I have only a minute left, but I did want to ask about, there was something I was thinking about, even this morning in that, the locations, again, going back
Yeah.
to them, there's something almost haunting about them in the way that, Mia is haunted by the memory or, the passing of Riley and not being present in her life anymore.
Mhm.
Was that something that you were looking at as well within those locations in the community that you are so familiar with?
Yes, definitely. Because one of the things that I really love about the idea of a ghost town is that if you've ever like explored an abandoned place that maybe at one point in time housed a lot of happy memories and now it's just sitting there rotting, and it's a place where kids played and laughed and giggled and now it's just filled with black mold. It's a very strange feeling to have like these husks of something that was once this one wonderful place, like the amusement park in the film, for instance.
Yeah, and that was something that your mom went to
Yeah.
at one point?
Yeah, my mom really did ride those rides when she was a little girl, and I was sending her pictures of the rides while we were there, and she's like, "Oh my God, yeah, I remember sitting there when I was like a teenager."
Has she seen the film yet?
Yeah,
What did
yeah.
she think of those moments and watching them back?
My mom's my biggest cheerleader. Yeah, I could do anything, and she'd be happy about it. So she was really excited to see it. It's very strange for her too, just like it's strange for me. Like she'll walk by the poster and be like, "It's my son's movie," but it's still it's like, wow, this is real.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And just the idea of like, the family element in there as well and like, inherited memories in a
Yeah.
way, plays into that. I have to wrap with you, but thank you so much for taking the time
course,
to do
man.
this. I really appreciate
No,
it.
it was great to meet you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.